Midnight Motorist isn't that hard, you guys are just overthinking it.
Hello fellow YouTubers and YouTube enjoyers, it's me, Bonnabelle, the bunny behind your slaughter, and for my first video I thought we would talk about a rather controversial minigame, Midnight Motorist. I've seen many FNAF fans talk about this game and make it seem way more complicated than it kind of is or should be, so this video will not get too speculative. I think that's the word, but you know, who knows anymore with the English language. And I will stick to more of what I can prove instead of like the what ifs. So with that being said, let's begin the video, shall we? FNAF 2's Taking Cake to the Children minigame is about the first child murder William commits. We know it's William because duh, purple guy, purple car, it's William. William's the great man. This location is Fredbear's. It's pretty much been confirmed to be Fredbear's. I really don't need to go on. But if there are some doubters, because there always are, no matter what fandom, let's just say allegedly it's Fredbear's for legal reasons, obviously. The Charlie Death minigame in Pizza Simulator gives us a better backstory to what happened in said minigame, aka she's the same as the child who was killed outside, but this one explains how she could have possibly haunted the puppet later on. Basically, take cake to children, but only about the child who died outside, aka Charlie Emily. So I may have possibly found a problem with Charlie being killed at Fredbear's. So we know there was possibly a restaurant between Fredbear's and FNAF 2 location. That explains where those withered animatronics originally had come from. And with the speculation that Junior's is actually not a bar, but rather a restaurant implied by the Freddy files. Now, do take that with a grain of salt because a lot of information in that book was wrong, but let's just take it as maybe it's true Junior's is actually a restaurant. That would make sense when looking at the map for the location of Junior's to the house that is supposedly William Afton's. It could make sense that Charlie was at the other location, possibly at Fredbear's number 2, which would make Junior's the original one, which would explain why the Green Man says, you're not really supposed to be here, because if William's kid died and William's probably going crazy over it, I probably would not want that man in the restaurant either. But this is just all speculation at this point, and I know I said I wouldn't get into it, but I thought I should try to maybe possibly dispel this before we continue. Whether Charlie was killed at Fredbear's or Fredbear's 2.0, it doesn't change the fact that Midnight Motorist definitely takes place after the night that she was killed. We know this because somewhere in the files, the name for Midnight Motorist is later that night. The scenery, the mood, etc. is very similar to the Charlie Death minigame. But maybe that's not enough for you, so let's say allegedly that it's the same. The fact Mustard Man even drives a purple car just like William Afton has been seen doing, and they are the only two characters ever portrayed to have purple cars, not to mention if you look closely in the clip of Charlie's body, you will see tire tracks which imply someone sped off. Let's review. The Charlie minigame in Pizza Simulator is a different perspective of the FNAF 2 minigame Take Cake to Children. We know William kills the child outside, and if that child is Charlie, then we know William kills Charlie. Those tire marks had to have been after he left. If Midnight Motorist is called later that night, after the Charlie minigame, that is undeniable proof that Midnight Motorist must be after William killed Charlie. Now, you might not believe me because he's yellow, but think of the facts. Mustard Man drives a purple car. He's speeding down the road, and the tire marks from where Charlie was killed looks like the car sped off at a super incredible fast pace. Therefore, it's got to be undeniable that Midnight Motorist takes place after the Charlie minigame. Now the question comes up, aside from the matching purple cars, timing, and so on, how is Mustard Man William, when William is known as the lean man, the great man, the purple man, the man behind the slaughter, you know, purple guy? Well, I'm going to propose one idea. Mustard Man is William before being known as the man behind the slaughter. That's right. I'm going to propose the idea that this is William before the missing kids incident. The color purple could represent William after the descent into madness and being known as the killer we know. You might be curious and might be thinking that these two people have different personalities. Afton is implied to be calm and rational, while Mustard Man is implied to be rather brash and is implied to be abusive. However, there's also the implication he's intoxicated, especially after the driving portion of Midnight Motorist minigame and the speed that he drives at. But what if I told you I can explain this? 1983, the year of tragedy, the bite of 83 occurred, and unfortunately the crying child will not survive. You might be wondering, why is this important? Now, we've proven that Charlie died in 1983. However, we can also use the books to also prove that Charlie died in 1983. Now, I know we can't trust the books as it's an alternative timeline. However, I know we can use some of the pieces from the books to solve other mysteries, just like how we use the books to solve the mystery behind Baby's pins. But some people will still insist that, well, that just won't work. So let's say allegedly this takes place in 1983 after Cece died and William killed Charlie. Why would William kill Charlie? It's quite simple. Everyone assumes that he was intoxicated, the way he drives, the personality change. Everyone especially notes that the personality change when it comes to the topic of the implied abuse. But what if I told you William Afton already was implied to be abusive? That's right. I will be pulling up the Fourth Closet novel, specifically the graphic novel, and do not fight me, this novel was approved by Scott, therefore it's valid in some way. We know that it's canon William was abusive to Elizabeth in some way. He's seen yelling and kind of pushing her around when she bothers him. Now, you're probably confused as to why I'm mentioning this. This doesn't exactly go with the games, except it might. Now, in the games, we know that William wasn't the best father. Even if Elizabeth didn't listen to him, he genuinely should have done better to keep her away from the animatronics, but he never even really tried. He knew the risks and still barely did anything. Now, I'm going to take this into consideration when it comes to the older brother, who everyone agrees is Michael, and the crying child. At no point is Afton seen stopping him. Perhaps it's true that his voice was coming from the plush, however that doesn't help. He didn't really do anything to stop his son, which in itself is neglect and abusive, but the theory that he's the voice behind the plush is for another video, so let's go back. Why did William kill Charlie? Well, if we were to believe Cece died before her death, and we do know, based on the books, the dynamic of who built the animatronics first and what, perhaps he thought Henry was somewhat responsible, or was he intoxicated and angry, or maybe it wasn't planned. So William unexpectedly kills Charlie in the heat of the moment. He probably was going to confront Henry or something like that after the death of his child, but let's just say it was unexpected. Unplanned and panicked state, he would definitely be speeding off, which could explain why he's going home so fast. He was in shock. Remember, this is before William is normalized with killing children, before he's calm and becomes indifferent to it. Except, wait, if Charlie was the first, then who the hell is that? No. We're not going to make this video longer than it needs to be. Just for the sake of the video, I'll discuss this thing in another one. Let's just pretend this doesn't exist for some goddamn reason for the sake of the video. Okay, so the random mound we see, it's Crying Child's grave. It makes sense, as I don't believe Elizabeth had died before Cece. And you might go, why wasn't she around in the game? Honestly, she could have been at a friend's house, at school, or in her bedroom. I guess she just wasn't that considered important to the main story of the game, which makes sense at the time. Recap time. In 1983, Crying Child dies as a result of the bite of 83. Later, William, before he becomes the man behind the slaughter, unexpectedly kills Charlie. Afterwards, he speeds home in a panicked rush. This gray person is not Michael. While older Foxy Bro might have gray-colored text, this does not mean it's the older brother. The personality just wouldn't match. If Michael is believed to be the Foxy brother, why then, if we say Crying Child's the child who runs away, would Michael be nice to him? Yes, siblings have good and bad days, but Michael would not do a full 180 and be like, he's had a bad day, leave him alone, Dad. So we can assume one of two things. The gray person is either the mysterious Mrs. Afton that everyone has no idea the mystery behind, watching TV, or another family member. Either or could be valid. I won't definitively say it's Miss Afton for the sake of not enough lore behind her. So who's the child that ran away? Michael Afton, the older brother, the rebellious one. Makes sense to why he'd lock the door when told not to and he runs away, back to the place he's not supposed to. Most likely Fredbear's or Junior's. William probably doesn't want him back there considering their reputation, especially Michael's, after the bite of 1983. And when the mustard man, probably William, states he's run away again, it adds more to the fact that this kid is a kid who's willing to run away. So who's outside the window? That's hard to figure out. Many YouTubers are speculating that it could be Nightmare Fredbear, as many pieces of evidence point to Michael being the protagonist of FNAF 4's main gameplay, or how in the survival logbook he states Nightmare Fredbear gives him nightmares at night. However, I'm not going to speculate on that because I'm just talking about the main story here, just like how I can't exactly comment on where Elizabeth is. She could be in her bedroom at the house, or at school, or another person's house. It doesn't mean she's dead, but again, I'm not here to fully go into the what ifs. Alright, conclusion time. Midnight Motorist is the story about William Afton after he first killed Charlie. It's not that complicated, except it could be the more I think about it. No. It's not fully complicated. The main part of the story is simple. It's William before he became a serial killer, suffering after the death of his youngest child. It's the origin point for Charlie haunting the puppet. The great person isn't Michael, rather either Miss Afton or another family member. It's sort of an origin story before things went downhill, possibly why he's portrayed as yellow instead of purple this time. Wow, that was intense, and yet very simple for my first video. I know I did go into a lot of what I guess were the details, the what if details, but I promise I'll go over them eventually, but I'm a bit backed up on videos right now. If you like this video, then I hope you'll stay for more. I promise I have a lot more videos coming out, but it takes time for me to write and edit because I type like a child with broken fingers and I speak like a child having a stroke, so please bear with me. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope to see you around. Now, time for the daily meme. Bye!